Hi, thanks for joining me again. I really appreciate it. This channel is a hobby for me. Not monetized, probably never will be, but that's all right. By the way, go Lions. It's a really nice looking fall day. A little crisp, but that's all right. And we're going to ratchet up your safety review a couple of notches. This particular job was more complicated than what you might expect. On the surface, it's just chainsawing, taking down an old tree. However, a few complications with it. Imagine, if you will, two limbs going together at the bottom from that black cherry right there, extend out to about here, about 3/4 of the way up those trees, about 25 feet, I figure, and directly over this secondary shed I have on the back of the property. Now, I could drop it, true. However, the angle puts it right over the top. I could cut it, put a little spin, make a drop here. However, it gets hung up in those trees. I could be more adventurous, drop it this way, nice and flat, nothing there that I want. However, I can't control that drop. Ideally, I want it to go right in this spot right here. I don't want it to hit these piles here. I don't want to hit that wood pile. I could always move the splitter. And in fact, that's what I did. I dropped it right here. The only damage was this retaining clip on the end. I bent up this metal a little bit, and that's all. Now, to be honest, I did plan this over a period of 7 months and went through several iterations to begin with. Okay, so ask me the question, why drop this tree in the first place? Release the limbs. Black cherry doesn't look too bad until we get to the other side. A third, very large limb, been here, dropped in an ice storm that way, took out a few things. The trunk is rotting pretty good and was also rotting at the time. I would have a couple of years left on this before it fell on its own, so I may as well take care of it now. And since it's just a trunk left, I can drop this anytime I want, no hurry. So, how did we do this? Well, you might think, why not just put a ladder against there? The problem with that is, first of all, it needs to be tied. And secondly, there are rotational forces involved with that saw. I can't extend the top of the ladder past where I need to cut. Otherwise, I'm cutting right where I'm at. And the rotational forces from that saw, if it hangs up just a bit, is going to throw me off that ladder. So, why not just get some harness gear, make my notches, and fell it. I couldn't use a hoist because this ground is sloped about 20 degrees. Although I did have room to get in, I wouldn't be able to balance it. I could have brought an aerial lift in this way, but I had a maple that's rather nice. I didn't want to disturb it. The ground is level, hard enough, but as it is, I had to cut a redbud, a cedar, and pull out two very large invasive honeysuckles, and it still would have been tight. While I could get the throwing bag and the line up into the tree, it kept sliding down. So that was a no-go. I couldn't winch up at the top. I had to winch up closer to the bottom. What I ended up doing was putting 2 notches in, one at about 3 o'clock and on the horizontal plane, about 2. Make another one at about 430. And that way, when it drops, it can spin just enough to go in the hole that I showed you. Winch it over here on that tree. We have just enough line, and we have a tree saver. I would be out of the way then, and even if I did make an error in my cut, I have plenty of open space to run. All right, I think that's enough on the background. Let's get into the nuts and bolts of the planning. We touched on it before, that there are numerous ways to conduct a risk analysis. I prefer something simple where I'm not going to get stuck in the weeds, and yet I think of everything that I can. One could also conduct an FMEA, failure modes and effects analysis, which is scored differently, but more comprehensive. Let's get into it. Recall that we have 0 is not significant, 1 is injury is possible or likely if no control is in place, and 2, injury is likely even if the controls are in place. Pay special attention to any number 2s. And once again, this is for my use on this particular job. Every situation is a little different. 4 elements are common: weather, environmental, self, and familiarity with the job. For instance, the weather. Sun's not in our eyes. Stay hydrated, wear layered clothing, and little or no wind. This one right here is very important. Now, if we control all those, we can reasonably say, honestly, that's a 0. Environmental. Any animals in the area are going to be scared away. There are no bugs out this time of year. Look for vines and ivy in the area for skin irritation. We have none of those bothering us. 0. Self. Now we have to be very honest. Are we up to doing the job? Can we bend and lift correctly? Myself, I should be stretching prior. And remember to focus on the job. Don't let any distractions get to you. The big one, appropriate and functional PPE. Face shield, safety toe boots, safety glasses, not goggles. Goggles are meant for splash hazards. They're not typically impact resistant. Safety glasses are impact resistant and meant for particles. Also, chaps, very important when using a chainsaw. A helmet, long pants, ear muffs or plugs, and leather gloves. No wimpy vinyl gloves. The bark on these trees tends to be a little rough. I've ripped clothes on them before. Pay attention to that. So, I think I would give most of these a very solid 1. Familiarity with the job. Conduct an in-depth review. Be honest with yourself. As I said, I took 7 months to look at different options. I had the time. If there was a storm and we need to get the tree out of the way, we may not have that much time. Practice what you're doing. Set it up. Try the equipment out. Make sure that it works. Develop backup plans. Suppose what you're cutting doesn't drop in the right spot. Suppose the equipment breaks. Do you have any manual tools you could use? What is my personal comfort level? And ask for input. If you happen to know someone well-versed in physics and or mathematics, ask for input. One could reasonably calculate where the branches are going to fall. These are heavy branches. They will hurt. So, myself, on this particular job, another solid 1. Tools and materials. Every piece of equipment has its own quirks, its own way of operating. Know how to use it and focus. My tools are all in working order. I know how to use them. Another solid one. The work area. Keep others and pets away. It's all right for someone to film you, but keep them out of the area. Awareness of holes, trip hazards, uneven and unlevel ground. There are a lot of things that can get in your way and trip you up. One has tools in their hand. Keep it as clean as possible, but your work area is going to become cluttered. Okay, so would you call that a 1 or a 2? I'm on the fence. So let's see if we can use our pencil, our paint marker, and we'll call that, honestly, a 2. And then other. Consider other ways to do the job. We could use a professional. We can use an aerial lift, which I've touched on before, and it wasn't going to work in my situation. If you're good at climbing trees, have the safety equipment. You could climb it, tie off your pieces, drop them manually once they're cut. Myself, I'm not comfortable with that, so I was not going to even try it. Now that is just a category to think about, so we have to pay special attention to our work area. I can't tell you how many times I've cut trees and stumbled on things. It just happens. Clean it up best you can and move forward. Be aware of that. So don't walk around with a chainsaw running. Get your finger off the trigger, carry it by the handle. As we get ready to leave today's session, a couple of things first. Thank you once again for joining me. I appreciate the time you spend here. Secondly, the goal remains to make sure we all go to bed with the same number of fingers and toes that we had when we got up.